Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our safety or summer safety series here for the Federal Aviation Administration. I'd like to welcome you all, and this will actually be our last session this summer, but we certainly appreciate the attendance and your opportunity to review these series that are out there and help us all make aviation safer as we move forward. Today, we're going to be discussing surface or runway safety and highlighting some of the most important things that general aviation pilots can become aware of and help us reduce risk. We'll also have an opportunity to answer your questions live. If you think of something, please send your questions to us via the Q&A links that are posted in the comment sections of the live stream for YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. And we look forward to having an opportunity to respond to your questions. So today, I'm Glenn Martin. I'm the Vice President for Safety and Technical Training with the Air Traffic Organization. And I have two guests with me today, Tony Schneider and Gio DePiero. And at this point, I'll turn it over and let Tony introduce himself. Tony?
Thanks, Glenn, and good afternoon. Again, I'm Tony Schneider, the Director of Safety in the FAA's Air Traffic Organization. I have over 35 years of aviation experience and started my career as an air traffic controller at Jacksonville Center and then went on to Fort Worth Center. I had the opportunity to be part of the O'Hare Modernization Program, and I have some experience in training, airspace and procedures and quality control. I was also very fortunate to be part of the team that implemented the small UAS rule in 2016. And it's an absolute honor to be with all of you here today as the Director of Safety. I'd like to introduce FAA's Office of Runway Safety Group Manager, Gio DePiero. Over to you, Gio.
Thanks, Tony. Appreciate it. Good afternoon, everyone. Giovanni DePiero. Like Tony said, I am the Group Manager for Runway Safety. Today's my 31st FAA anniversary. I've been with the agency 31 years, started in Oklahoma City today. A little background with me, I graduated from the academy, went to Van Nuys Tower, my first FAA facility, and worked there, Houston Hobby and Dallas-Fort Worth Tower, and left Dallas-Fort Worth Tower about 2.5 years ago as the air traffic manager to come over to the Office of Runway Safety. What I find interesting about this conversation is that what was taught to me 31 years ago back at Van Nuys in regards to surface safety and wrong surface operations is something still continuing the conversation today. So I'm excited about the conversation today. So back to you, Glenn.
All right, thank you both for being here, and look forward to our conversation and certainly the questions from the folks able to watch us out there today. Surface safety continues to be a large focus and concern for us, especially for our general aviation community. This is because general aviation aircraft are involved in over 80% of the wrong surface events, and that's having occurred all the way dating back to 2016. So this trend continues, and it's significant, and it means that all of us need to work together to try and address the risks out there. Today, we want to discuss the data and the risks that are occurring and the actions that the general aviation community can take to prevent these types of events. So with that, Tony, let's start off with you. What is a wrong surface event, and what do you see as some of the common causes?
Thanks, Glenn. For me, a wrong surface event it occurs when an aircraft lands or departs or attempts to land or depart on the wrong runway or taxiway. It also occurs when aircraft attempts or lands at the wrong airport. And so simply put, wrong surface events can be broken down into landing, or alignment with the wrong arrival runway, departure, or alignment with the wrong departure runway, and finally landing at that wrong airport. Wrong surface events can result in runway excursions, collisions with other aircraft or vehicles, and are higher risk runway incursions. And so there's a couple of things to keep in mind. And I think the most important is there does not appear to be any one thing that seems to cause a wrong surface event. It's normally some combination of factors that come together, resulting in a wrong surface alignment or a landing. Some of the things to keep in mind are airport configuration, staggered or offset parallel runways or taxiways, pilots being unfamiliar with the airport configuration, pilot or controller expectation bias, or ATC runway clearances or clearance changes. And so, Gio, could you tell us a little bit about some of the tools to address some of these concerns?
Sure, Tony. A couple resources that we have for pilots. I'm going to start out with actually the Runway Safety Pilot Simulator. So the simulator has scenarios that are interactive, so that student or the user can go to the pilot simulator and actually taxi around the airport based on instructions that are given. It has a map based on an airport diagram on selecting a runway based on the clearance and are you selecting the correct runway. But we also have animations, and these animations are actual real life events that have happened, the National Airspace System. They're redacted, so you don't know who the pilot was or the facility, but it really kind of shows you the whole event, how it worked, what happened, and essentially how the wrong surface happened. We have three different scenarios, one for pilots, one for environment, and one for training. So that's a great resource to use on how to mitigate the wrong surface event. Another resource, which is really something that has really taken off with the, is the From the Flight Deck series. So as of today, 52 different scenarios on there, but what they really are is they're airports, 47 videos for specific airports that really identify hotspots, confusing taxiway geometry, and all these lead to runway incursions. And also we have airports that have a systemic risk with associated wrong surface runway confusion for pilots in regards to arrivals and or departures. And then we have 5 different single topic videos that we go from winter weather operations, hold short, and then we have the different wrong surface type videos. So we have wrong airport landing, which is one what we classify as a wrong surface operation, wrong surface intersection departures, and then we have our parallel airports with very closely spaced runways and staggered thresholds. And those are the types of configurations that typically lead to runway confusion and a pilot landing on the wrong surface. So with that, I think is actually we're going to go to our first video clip, and we're going to actually talk about our parallel runway video clip.
This mistake occurs for many reasons. These are just a few. At airports with vastly different sized runways, transient pilots may proceed to the first runway they see, which may be the wrong one. Along the same lines, staggered thresholds present the same challenge. The closer runway is assumed to be the runway cleared. Locally based pilots may experience expectation bias when cleared to land on a runway other than the one they have come to expect. Pilots may become confused if air traffic control changes runway assignment after initial clearance. Runways that are spaced closely together and or bounded by full-length parallel taxiways present another possible confusion factor.
So thanks a lot, Tony and Gio, for that. As everyone can see, there's many different risks that are out there as you're making your trips and getting the work done, moving your families around to the important events that you have in your life. A lot of different things contribute to these safety events. And so it's really important for everyone to have our awareness raised, to be as familiar with the locations as we go into them as we can. Because as you know, airports look a lot different around the country, and we're really trying to work toward building tools from the pilot's perspective to really help you feel more comfortable and certainly more aware as you go in. We have had some pretty good luck with these. I think the latest numbers I saw for the From the Flight Deck videos showed over 200,000 views for those, We really appreciate the effort out there to review this information, and we really hope we're making a little bit of difference in that area, making you more familiar with specific issues, and then also with some of the airports in which it's more difficult perhaps to get in and out of there safely, given the configuration or the other things that were mentioned. With that, Tony, what are some of the other ways to help prepare for a flight and to maybe avoid some of these mistakes?
Glenn, I think you highlighted a couple of great items, but maybe piggyback on that. Some of the best ways to prevent wrong surface events really start right from a good pre-flight and some good pre-flight habits. First, as you mentioned, Glenn, reviewing the airport diagram for departure and arrival airports, making sure you're familiar with the configuration and how those fit into your flight. Also making sure you stay familiar with the airport signage, because again, no two airports are the same. Really important is checking the weather. Weather continues to be a leading and contributing factor in GA accidents and can significantly impact your approach or departure from an airport. Also, don't allow complacency to set in, especially when you're accustomed to a particular airport or familiar with it. There is a lot of airport construction currently underway, so make sure you review your NOTAMs and know what's open and what's closed. And finally, using the flight aware tools can really help pilots make sure they do a really good pre-flight. Back to you, Glenn.
Thanks, Tony. Appreciate all of those, and certainly some great ideas to mention and share with our group that's here today. I would like to shift the conversation to wrong surface departures. And wrong surface departures are a little bit different. And so maybe back to you, Tony. Can you tell us some of the common types of wrong surface departures?
Sure. Some of the most common types of wrong surface departures include departing from the wrong runway. This can be caused by being unfamiliar with the airport configuration or misinterpreting signs. Also, the absence of visual cues can sometimes play a part of that, like aircraft departing. We also sometimes see pilots departing off of a taxiway. This can be really risky because other aircraft may be operating on those taxiways. There may be trees, towers, and other obstructions near the taxiway. And so taxiways are really built for high energy operations. So lights, signage, and markings are your friend. Make sure you're looking for them. And then finally, we also sometimes see pilots turning the wrong way when departing from an intersection. We have a great clip regarding wrong intersection causes. And so could we please run that clip?
Let's review some common causes of the intersection takeoffs in the wrong direction and some best practices to help you avoid them. The risks associated with the wrong direction takeoff are serious. The aircraft could conflict with traffic on approach, traffic holding in position for full-length departure, or with traffic on a different runway altogether, resulting in a near miss or accident. The aircraft could be faced with insufficient runway to get airborne depending on the runway length available from the intersection. The consequences of wrong direction takeoffs are serious. What causes a pilot to lose situational awareness and make such a dangerous error? Feeling rushed into the situation, not being fully prepared and ready reaching the hold short line. Clues during slow periods, such as other aircraft operating in the appropriate traffic flow at the airport. These are just a few of the things that may lead you to line up in the wrong direction.
Gio, what are your thoughts around some of the other reasons that may be causing safety concerns for intersection departures or wrong surface departures altogether?
A couple things come to mind, Glenn. Loss of situational awareness, but also distractions. So not being present in the moment, focusing on ATC instructions, having passengers that may be asking questions at times when ATC is also giving instructions that you're not really focused on that conversation. So it's really being present in that three-dimensional situational in space and time. You're there, you're listening, you're following instructions. So you don't want to make a poor decision by being distracted and not actually following ATC instructions. We have actually a great scenario that we have in the pilot simulator where an aircraft was taxied out to a runway, was told to expect 3 to 5 minute delay. And then they get out there and they just acknowledge that, hey, I'm here, I'm at this intersection, and they were cleared for takeoff. So that pilot was trying to do their pre-flight, trying to do all the things that associate with that. And they didn't, really say, I'm really not ready to go, distracted by, the conversation at hand is I need to get out there. I've been cleared by ATC, and ends up taking off in the wrong direction on the assigned runway. So what we've really done is really kind of help foster that conversation, with the pilot simulator, also by having this scenario called enable. If you get instructions from ATC and you aren't ready to execute them, state the word enable. ATC really has a plan for you, and if you can't execute that plan at that time, they'll come up with plan B. So those are a few of the things that kind of contribute to wrong surface, especially intersection departures specifically.
Those are all just really great points, Gio. Thanks for that. Tony, do you have some suggestions on how to limit distractions within the cockpit?
Yes, I do, Glenn. The first one is takeoff and landing, as you already know, are critical phases of flight. And so it's really important that you remember taxiing is a full-time job. So some of the best practices before you start the engine, explain to your passengers that once the plane is moving with the intention of flight, we are in flight. If you have questions, a good strategy is to have the passenger tap you on the shoulder before blurting out, which gives you an opportunity to signal you're listening or you need them to wait. Also, defer that inside cockpit activities such as locking down items, checklists, testing and radio, testing your radios during taxi. We also recommend waiting on activities, those type of activities until you're holding short or you accomplish these in the parking area. Phones should be in the off or not on vibrate. And finally, focus on the ATC communication. Make sure you understand your clearance before accepting it. Some strategy I've seen used is, write the clearance down. And then most importantly, if you're ever in doubt or have a question, ask ATC. Gio, any thoughts on that?
Well, Tony, I think you kind of said a key word here, communication, right? ATC, air traffic pilots, we speak a language really all unto ourselves. I mean, when my friends who are not controllers listen to air traffic, they're like, well, what does all those, letters mean? That Alpha, Bravo, Delta. And so it's really kind of making sure that you understand as the pilot, ATC's expectations in the communication. If you're unsure, and I'll give you an example, taxi runway incursions. If you're flying into an airport and you're unfamiliar with that airport, one of the things I would hope the pilot would say is, hello, this is Cessna 12345 on final. We're going to Atlantic Aviation. First time here, I'm gonna ask for progressives. That gives air traffic that insight, okay, when you clear the runway, they'll tell ground control they're gonna need progressives to that FBO to kind of help you mitigate having a runway incursion on an airport that you're unfamiliar with. So those are the things we've made changes to controller phraseology in regards to runway changes. So when you get a late runway change and you get told change to runway 28 left, runway 28 left, clear to land, it's said to you twice so that you have that understanding of what runway you want to land on. You don't want to have that expectation bias of, well, I come in here and I get this runway every single day, and you just kind of repeat what you think you heard, not what you really heard. So that the communication really is the key in making sure that if you need help, like you said, ATC is there to help, advise them, and they'll give you, they'll make sure that they get you to your FBO safely.
Well, thank you so much, both of you. It looks like we've gotten some really great questions. I think they will draw out some more of the information around our tools as well as awareness and best practices and so forth. So why don't we go ahead, for all of you out there, if you would like to join us, you can send your questions in via the question and answer link. it is in your live stream on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. So going over to the first question, Tony, I'm sorry, Gio, this first question will be for you. Can you offer a simple explanation of situational awareness?
Simple explanation of situational is being, really being present in space and time at what's going on around you at that specific moment. Active listening, looking at if I'm assigned runway 14 for departure, does that compass, does that heading bug actually say 14 on your instruments? If it says something other than that, you may not be on the correct runway. So that's situational awareness, but painting that mental picture based on what you're hearing on the frequency and where do I fit into this grand, ballet that's going around that airport of getting in there. That's situational awareness. So knowing where you fit in with all the other aircraft that are flying around there is really what situational awareness is really all about.
Great answer, Gio. And certainly something that we try to instill in air traffic control is sharing the right information so that the pilots can acquire that situational awareness and certainly be solutions to the sequencing and the safety of the operation where they're at. So great comments. Tony, a question for you. Any types of aircrafts that you have flown in that are there any types of aircraft that you have flown in that present a challenge in terms of seeing everything around you while you're on the ground?
Thanks, Glenn. I think each aircraft kind of comes with its own set of challenges. And so just as there are blind spots in various cars, the same thing is true for aircraft. A couple of the best practices mentioned earlier include, and most importantly, keep your head up, keep your eyes out. Don't do your run up while you're moving. Don't program your tablet or GPS while you're moving. Don't do your pre-takeoff checklist while you're moving. And so keeping your head up and staying focused on flying the aircraft while the aircraft is moving is probably the best strategy that seems to work. Back to you, Glenn.
Thanks, Tony. I would like to circle back as we did from the flight deck videos. And Tony, can you tell me more about the purpose of those videos?
Absolutely. From the flight deck videos aim to support that pre-planning effort or to increase your situational awareness on the specific surface-based challenges or known problems at that airport. There's two types of videos. The first being videos that are specific to a specific airport. From the flight deck footage actually lets you see in advance or prepare before you even get there some of the challenges that you're going to encounter as you arrive at that airport. As Gio kind of mentioned earlier, it helps you maintain that situational awareness when flying in and taxiing. And then the second type of video is that single topic video, which has the same goal, but it focuses more broadly on the broader surface-based risk or hazard. So pilots can take a look at those. They're more generic in nature. And again, they're applicable to a variety of different airports throughout the NAS. Both categories of videos are really intended to supplement that pilot's pre-flight planning and general surface safety knowledge. As of August 25th, 53 videos are available. And so we're very excited about that. And they've actually gotten quite a few views, Glenn, over 200,000 times. We've seen folks hit those videos. And so that's very exciting. From a pilot's perspective, there's no cost to view these. And these videos really give you a great inside baseball on what's happening at those airports. And so we hope you find them very useful.
Thanks, Tony. Appreciate that. Gio, here's a situational question for you. What happens when two aircraft enter the same taxiway face to face? Does ATC have clearance to close the taxiway, or what action is taken to solve this problem?
Oh, this has happened to me. So air traffic does not have authorization to close a taxiway. The airport operator They own the surface and they're the only ones that can close a taxiway. A lot of it will really depend on the aircraft design group and can that aircraft make a 180 where they are, or do you have to get a tug to essentially move the aircraft apart so that they can safely kind of maneuver out of that confined space. So typically it just really depends on where the taxiways are. If one of the planes can essentially make a 180 and move so that you can continue the flow of traffic, that'll happen. If not, they'll sit there and bring a tug out to, essentially get those aircraft, out of that area. But for all intents and purposes, the taxiway can't be used anymore. But that airport operator is the one who will designate that taxiway to be open or closed.
Thanks, Gio. And just a small add there is just to say, that's a great scenario around going ahead and perhaps stopping and asking the controller to clarify your clearance. Clearly, that's not going to work. And, how we got into that situation will certainly be unpacked. But we certainly never intend from an ATC perspective to put you in a situation like that. And I think it's only fair that you would stop and ask us just to be sure everybody understands that scenario and how it's developing. So great question. Thanks. Gio, I've got another question for you. How does a hotspot occur at the airport, and can they be predicted before a runway or taxiway is even built?
So a lot of our airports, Glenn, that are essentially older military bases. And when you look at the geometry associated with those older airfields, the design standards that Office of Airports does today, they will essentially, when they build new taxiways or they do runway incursion mitigation projects, will make sure that that taxiway meets current standards that you would hopefully not have a hotspot. Predicted, that's why, nowadays when they build it, yes, they'll sit there and do that. For the existing inventory of taxiways that are out there, what happens is typically you look at data. So data is what we kind of work on that speaks to us in regards to runway incursion rates, confusion with entering a taxiway or a runway. The Runway Safety Office working with Flight Standards, Office of Airports, and our Runway Safety Action Team meetings and that air traffic facility looks at the data and says we have a continued risk associated with this area. And they'll sit there and develop that hotspot for that area and the associated verbiage to heighten that pilot's awareness so that when they look at the airport diagram, they see the hotspot and they were able to tell, why is this here? What do I need to do to make sure that I don't have confusion associated with this hotspot based on the surface safety risk with a runway incursion or a taxiway incursion?
Thanks, Gio. Tony, here's a good question. The question is, at my local field, there doesn't seem to be much discussion on this topic. What can I do to help, and any suggestions on how to get it started?
Thanks, Glenn. And let me start out by saying thank you for your willingness to step up. Aviation safety really takes a village. And so you are a critical component of that village. And so thank you again for stepping up. There's really three different ways to get connected. First, highly recommend you reach out to your local air traffic facility and ask when the next Runway Safety Action Team or RSAT meeting is going to take place. We welcome pilots to those meetings. It's a great opportunity to exchange information and highly encourage you to participate in your local airport RSATs. Second, and another great source is to reach out to your FAA safety team or your FAST team representative. You can go to FAAsafety.gov and find out who that is, and you can begin that conversation. And finally, if you search the internet for FAA runway safety and you find our page, you can contact your runway safety manager and reach out to the runway safety team in your area. And again, they are a great source to provide you a lot of resources and to engage in that conversation.
Great. Great suggestions. Thanks, Tony. And thanks all of you for the question. I will remind the folks able to tune in today, you can submit your questions via the link posted in the comment section of the live stream. So please click in and forward your message, and hopefully we'll be able to get to it. So thank you guys for your time. Gio, here's a question for you. This pilot recently flew into San Diego Lindbergh and saw red lights light up in front of them when they were issued a line up and wait. The tower was busy, and unfortunately they didn't get a chance to ask while they were there, but they wanted to know what were those lights, and what did all that mean?
So you flew into one of the 20 airports in the National Airspace System. They have something called runway status lights. At the thresholds, we have something called THLs, which is taxi hold lights. And what they are is that when you're issued line up and wait, if there's a conflict on the runway, i.e. another aircraft that's still on the runway, you will get red lights. So in the event that you're issued a takeoff clearance, that the red lights will prevent you from departing. And on the ATIS, there's also a message that says that, do not depart or do not cross if red lights are illuminated, because there's also another component to runway status lights, which is the runway entrance lights. So Tony, do you want to talk about the runway entrance lights and how they work?
Yeah, sure. Runway entrance lights, and it really boils down to this. If they're red, it's not safe to enter or cross a runway. Rails indicate the runway status, and so red indicates that an aircraft is landing or is taking off from the runway. And so as the aircraft goes through the intersections, the lights will go off. I think there's also one more important point to make, Gio, is that just because the lights went off doesn't authorize you to go out onto the runway. They're not stop and go lights. You still require ATC clearance to cross or to enter the runway.
All right. Thank you both. Great comments. So Tony, if I can, I know you talked about this earlier, but I wanted to emphasize this. Can you again comment on what's your biggest concern that you see that can help improve pilots' focus when they're taxiing around and moving on the airfield, and what are some of the best practices that you want to be sure they hear again?
Thanks, Glenn. I think there's two components to that. The first part being before you're taxiing, and then the second one is after you start taxiing. The before actually starts with the pre-plan, right? Making sure you're educated and inform yourself and using the FAA resources like from the flight deck, the pilot simulator, aircraft diagrams, your chart supplement, ATIS, NOTAMs, knowing your hotspots, being ready to taxi on the airfield starts with those great pre-flight habits and making sure you're prepared and understand what's out there. And then finally, during keeping your heads up, keeping your head up and your eyes looking out, maintaining that sterile cockpit, knowing the signage and markings. Again, the most important thing I could tell you is if you ever have any doubts, please feel free to stop on the taxiway and contact ATC. You can ask for progressive taxi instructions. And again, they are always available. Remember, ATC is a service and they're there to help.
Great comments, Tony. And one probably pilots don't hear a lot, and that is on a taxiway, if necessary, it is okay to stop and ask and question. Certainly on a runway, in most cases, I would always tell you to exit the runway. But on a taxiway, certainly it's an opportunity if you would need to, and it's safer to just draw to a stop. Great comments. Gio, can you think of an opportunity or a situation in which complacency can be an issue, and perhaps even at an airport that you're familiar with?
Sure. I kind of think of it this way. I'm a CFI, I'm instructing, and we always take off and we go out to a practice field, and I call back inbound, and I report that I am over Cal State Northridge at Ben Eyes, and I get enter right base 16 right every single time. That's just what I get. I do this hundreds of times. And it's usually, and my taxi or my landing instruction is going to be, you're number 2, you're following traffic on a 2-mile funnel running 16 right, clear to land. And based on traffic that day, based on departure demand, whatever it is, they say running 16 left, clear to land. And that complacency of hearing the same thing day in and day out is what's going to cause that wrong surface operation. And that's the part that is just, so when you listen to the communication, not only repeat it, just verify it in your mind. What am I hearing and what am I saying back? And that's really how complacency creeps into being a victim of a wrong surface operation.
Thanks, Gio. And Tony, I guess for you as well, can you think of an issue at an airport you're familiar with and where you felt there was a situation where complacency could have got someone into trouble?
Yeah, Glenn, I think the video kind of highlighted, but I just want to articulate it one more time. You're used to making that turn off a base to final and going to that first runway you see. And so it's, it's a big runway. It's right there in front of you. You've made the turn, thousands of times. And unfortunately, the first runway you see isn't the one that you've been cleared to. And so, again, I would really articulate, if there's any question, in fact, for me, it's funny because my wife calls it spidey sense, but the hair on the back of your neck is standing up for some reason. Just confirm with ATC the runway that you've been cleared to land, or just tell them, make sure you get the read back and you specify the runway you're cleared to land. 9 times out of 10, your spidey sense are absolutely right.
All right. Thank you both on that one. Gio, for you, if a pilot has to taxi at a busy commercial airport, what's the best advice you got for him today?
Busy. So I'm gonna infer that we're talking about an airport probably has a large percentage of air carrier operations. So those airports will probably typically taxi route, extremely important. Make sure you look at that airport diagram, and the controllers there probably will talk quite quickly. So if you have a question regarding the route, confirm it before you start taxiing. Don't go on assumptions. Step 1. Step 2, always maintain a proper distance based on jet blast from those large commercial carriers. So you're probably going to be in a smaller general aviation aircraft, and those commercial carriers, especially if you have engines that are low wing 737s, A320s, when they power up, especially from a stop, they're going to go to a little bit more higher power level than when they're just kind of on a taxi. So keep your distance from the big boys, because you don't want to sit there and get involved in that jet blast associated with that aircraft. And the one thing that I'll probably just keep saying this over and over again is if you're unsure, like you said, Glenn, stop and ask for progressives. Don't sit there and look at the diagram. If you're still unsure, and if it's that very complex taxi routing, stop and say, can I just please get progressives? And the controllers, like I said, Tony, you said it best, ATC is there to help. So take that help and, mitigate that risk. So.
Great offering, Gio. Thank you for that. Tony, can you offer the pilots, again, some tips perhaps specifically around if they get confused while they're taxiing? What are some of the options they should take?
Glenn, maybe to reemphasize some of the things Gio just said, first and foremost, if you're in the parking area or you're on the taxi, stop and contact ATC. ATC is there to provide a service, use it. Also, it does take a little bit of courage to ask for help. I think, one of the things I'm constantly told is, hey, if you don't know where you're going, stop and ask for directions. That can't be more true than here as you're navigating on the airfield. And then the second thing I thought Gio said that resonated with me was never operate on assumptions. Be sure you're not on a runway that you're not supposed to be on. Look for the white runway markings. And also, request assistance progressive taxis, as Gio just said. ATC is a service provider. The other thing is, if you feel rushed, you shouldn't be, right? I think, again, as Gio mentioned, we have a video on Unable. If you feel like you're not ready to depart, or just tell ATC Unable, and ATC then will go to plan B and sequence you into the departure queue. Back to you, Glenn.
Gio, kind of along the same lines, but great question coming into us. How does a pilot proceed at night when a taxiway sign is not lit or is out, and they're not sure what direction to take? So very similar to Tony's, but very specific about the lighting and the availability of signage.
Yeah. So once again, air traffic, right? They're there to help. So if you're unsure and if a light is out, make sure you let air traffic know. They're going to know hopefully we came off the runway. Based on the taxi instructions, they're going to be looking out the window, or if they have surface surveillance, they're able to track you via the ASDX surface radar. But if you're unsure, ask for those progressives. Don't go on assumptions. If they need be, they'll probably even have airport operations that you can probably follow that airport operations vehicle and just kind of hold where you are. But I think that's the key thing is don't go on assumptions and start going in places that you're unfamiliar, especially if you're maybe possibly lost on that airfield. So, make sure you're not on look at the runway lighting is very different from taxiway lighting. So make sure you're not on that runway, and then just kind of stop and hopefully, and just get the progressives from air traffic.
Very good. Very good. So we have mentioned hotspots. These are areas that have been identified through stakeholder discussions, and obviously looking for all the stakeholders to confer on these types of things. And these are particular spots on the airports that we feel present some risk for a variety of reasons, either the angle that they take or the convergence of a lot of different taxiways, or could be an unusual location that it syncs up to a runway. So wanted to come over to you, Gio, on this. And how does the FAA deal with these kinds of spots, and what are we trying to do about them?
So Glenn, the hot spots are one of the topics that Tony talked about earlier in regards to the runway safety action team meetings. So we work collaboratively with Office of Airports, the pilot community, and that air traffic facility to create the hotspot, but also, if there's a nomenclature change or signage is helped, and how to eliminate that hotspot. Because, we don't want to have too many hotspots that the whole airport becomes a hotspot, but we also want to sit there and also kind of essentially address that, that risk. So that verbiage associated with that hotspot that the Runway Safety Office works with the different entities really is what you want to communicate to that pilot as to why that hotspot exists and the risk associated with that. So that runway safety action team meeting, I think, Tony, you said it, get involved in that, go to those meetings, and especially for your home airport, get more involved there, and you'll understand how the hotspots are created or removed for that matter.
Great. Thanks, Gio. So our time is kind of winding down now, so I'm going to come back to each of you here just in a moment, but just really like you all to kind of summarize your thoughts today and the things that you've shared, and really try and help focus folks, in addition to these webinars or things commented here, what else is the FAA doing, or what else can we ask of the general aviation pilot community to help avoid surface events and help us reduce the number of runway incursions? So Tony, I'll start with you, if you could sum it up for us.
Yeah, Glenn, as you were saying that, I was thinking there are old pilots, there are bold pilots, but there's very few old, bold pilots. And the reason that is being a pilot is about the community, getting plugged in with your runway safety action team, and finding out, where are the hot spots, and providing input and feedback on that, getting plugged in with the FAST team, talk about a great resource and a great opportunity to talk to other pilots and experienced pilots and learn from them. And then finally, stay connected to the Runway Safety website. There's a constant stream of new materials coming out. And so as we start to see safety trends, we're plugging those things into the Runway Safety website for you, so you can stay abreast of some of the challenges that we're seeing on a more national and a local level.
Thanks a lot, Tony. Appreciate that. Gio, what are your final thoughts?
If I had to summarize it in one thing, it's really the communication between pilots and controllers. And what I mean by that is, in addition to the RSATs, I know during these challenging times with COVID, pilot controller forums. Those are opportunities for pilots and controllers to really discuss that and surface safety risk for that home airport. So if you fly in and out of a certain airport, try to get to know those controllers. I know that right now, going to visit facilities is, really not something that's being supported. But as times change, I think back, Glenn, we had that CFI in the tower cab with us at Van Nuys watching that first student solo. And that is really kind of just getting to know those individuals on that airfield. That flight school really is that one of those probably main operators there. So get to know that manager, get to know those controllers, and bring your students there. Have them talk to the controller. You'll understand why certain things happen on that airfield. So to me, it really boils down to the FAST team is the conduit, but getting with air traffic and having those pilot controller forums, and we're going to sit there really and try to get those done. We have success doing them on Zoom also, but getting those people together really, I think, increases that safety because you get those two entities talking to each other.
Well, again, just great comments from both of you. Certainly appreciate all of the things you shared today. I would like to thank everyone for joining us and attending today's session. We were very happy to put on this summit series this whole summer on a variety of topics. We hope you'll have a chance to review these, and certainly hope that you see the efforts that the FAA is making to really try and bring some of the awareness and some of the training to you in a perspective so important, and that's yours out there. I know that you want to be safe, and as always, and has been said here several times today, we're here to be safe with you. We're here to help you be safe, and certainly ask questions, stop and make sure we're both understanding what's happening on the airfield or in the air, and certainly want you all to enjoy your flying. And we certainly enjoy that you're out there and using the airports and moving around such as you are. So thank you all for joining us. You can watch this recording of this session again if you want to do it over. And all of the previous Summit series are on the playlist on YouTube. So thank you all so much for tuning in. Great job, Tony and Gio. And we look forward to seeing you all, hopefully even before next summer. So thank you all very much. Have a great day.